welcome back to Lisa's Study Guide. I'm Lisa, in case you didn't know already. Today we're going to be talking about women of Troy, and I know that not as many of you are actually studying this text, so I'm really glad that I'm able to spend some time and curate some resources for you guys that isn't quite as readily available. And I wanted to say a massive thank you to Lindsay, who helped me write up this YouTube script, and she's also created a blog post which I'll just link up above for you. So if you enjoyed this video and you wanted to find out more about the women of Troy, then themes, characters, basically a little study guide for you is available on my website. So head to there to check out if you wanted to read further and get more knowledge for your SAC and exam. Now, before we move into the essay prompt, I'm going to give you a quick summary of the text. Staged in a patriarchal society, Women of Troy was set during the immediate aftermath of the Trojan War, a war between the Greeks and the Trojans. Hecuba is the former queen of Troy, who suffered so much loss as the mother of her children, as well as the mother of Troy. She lost her son Hector and her husband in the Trojan War. Her daughter Polyxena also died, and Cassandra was raped. After the Greeks won, women were allocated to Greek households and forced into slavery, including the Queen of Troy. She was also the mother of Paris, the Prince of Troy. It was purported that Paris and Helen were responsible for initiating the war, as Helen was governed by her lust for Paris and left Melanus, the Spartan prince, for this young Prince of Troy. Consequently, Melanus was enraged by this elopement and declared that he wanted Helen dead as a punishment for her disloyalty. Helen defended herself and lied that it was against her will, crying that she was kidnapped, and blamed Hecuba for the fall of Troy and for the conflict between the two sides. However, Melanus did not believe in what Helen had to say and decided to bring her back to her home on a separate ship. The play ended with the Greek ships leaving Troy, which was then on fire. The Trojans sang a sad song together as they left to prepare for their new lives as slaves living in Greek households. The play's main focus is on the suffering of women, as exemplified by the way Euripides chose to portray Hecuba's loss and Cassandra's helplessness. So our essay prompt for today is: how does Euripides use the structure of the play to explore the role of women and the suffering in the time of war? This is definitely one of the more challenging prompts that Vika is more on the unlikely side to give you in an exam. However, I have seen schools in their SACs give these type of language technique or language device, structure-based prompts during SACs. So I think it's a really great idea for you to practice these. We haven't done anything like this on our channel before, so even if you're not studying this text, good on you for, staying here and watching this through, because this is one type of prompt. It's a language/structure type of prompt, which requires you to find different types of evidence to back up your arguments. Rather than just looking at quotes, you're now looking for things like symbolism, metaphors, stage directions to help you really answer the prompt. So let's get into it. The first thing I always do is look for keywords. The keywords in this prompt are structure, role of women, and suffering. With the structure of the play, we can potentially talk about character-related evidence, like the strong female character base, language-related features, such as meta-language and literary devices, or plot-related features, like events, including irony and foreshadowing. In a male-dominated patriarchal society, women are often time-oppressed and seen as inferior. Their roles in the society are limited. They are only seen as domestic housewives and mothers. It's important to look for evidence that either support or contradict this statement. So ask yourself, is Euripides trying to support the statement and agree that women are simply creatures of emotions that should only stick with their domestic duties? Or is he trying to criticize this belief by showing that women are so much more than just those being governed by their emotions? Since this play primarily focuses on the cost of war and how women, as innocent bystanders, have to suffer as a result of the Trojan War, it shouldn't be difficult finding evidence related to women's suffering. These might include Hecuba's loss, so she lost her home and children, or Hecuba's pain, like being blamed for Troy's ruin, Cassandra's helplessness despite knowing her fate, surrendering and accepting her future, or Andromache's bitter fate having to give up her child, or the chorus voicing their opinion about slavery. Once a prompt is carefully broken down, it's no longer that scary because all we have to do now is organize our thoughts and write out our topic sentences. Body paragraph 1. Euripides constructs a strong female character base to contradict the prevailing views of the period that women are inferior to their male counterparts. It is significant that Euripides chose to have a strong female protagonist, as the character herself acts as a diatribe against the patriarchal society, contradicting any ingrained beliefs that pervaded the society at the time. An example of an evidence that can support this statement is the ways in which Hecuba dominates the stage while giving her opening lamentation. The lengthy nature of the monologue itself enables Euripides to present his proto-feminist ideas and go against the Hellenic gendered prejudice. We can also talk about Hecuba's leadership and her interaction with the chorus of Trojan women. She refers to them as my children and employs the simile, a mother at her plundered nest. The way Euripides constructs the relationship between the characters is worth mentioning, since Hecuba in this play is portrayed as a passionate and empathetic leader, showing that women are also capable of leading others in a way that engenders a sense of camaraderie between them. Another good thinking point is to talk about how Helen acts as a paradigm of a group of women who had turned to deception and went against their integrity to survive in time of tragedy. Body paragraph 2. Euripides' selective use of language and literary devices in portraying women's pain and suffering further enables him to portray the ways in which women, as innocent bystanders, are oppressed in time of war. An example of a meta-language used in this play is the animal imagery the chorus used to depict Hecuba's pain. By referring to a pain as a howl of agony, they intensify the magnitude of Hecuba's pain, as the term howl is usually used to describe a loud cry, usually uttered by animals like wolves. This implies that Hecuba, who acts as representative of Hellenic women, has to suffer an emotional turmoil that is far beyond bearable, which in turn further fortifies the audience sympathy for her, as well as the Trojan women. Another piece of evidence that I would talk about is the simile dragged as a slave. It's used to describe Hecuba, the former queen of Troy. By likening someone who used to be at a position of power to a slave, Euripides underscores the drastic change in circumstances that occurred as a result of the Trojan War, magnifying the tremendous amount of loss Hecuba experienced. Furthermore, the image of the protagonist's devastated physical state enhances the dramatist's condemnation of war, as it allows him to elucidate the detrimental impacts such violence and dreadfulness impose upon innocent bystanders. There are, of course, plenty of other evidence, like when Cassandra is portrayed as a poor mad child, her helplessness surrendering to her wretched fate with Agamemnon, who wanted her for himself. We can also talk about the inclusive language positing our misery, our home, used by the chorus in echoing Hecuba's pain, etc. The use of symbolism can also be discussed. For instance, the citadel in the city of Troy in the epilogue acts as a metonym for Hecuba's resistance before entering slavery. The image of it crumbling exemplifies women's helplessness and enhances the notion that they are still in positions of explicit subjugation. Paragraph 3. While Euripides primarily focuses on portraying women's pain and suffering, he does not completely vilify men or victimize women, maintaining an unbiased view so as to underscore the importance of integrity through his characterization of both male and female character. The last body paragraph of our essays is often the one used to challenge the prompt, showing the assessors our wealth of ideas and depth of knowledge. Basically, what we are to say is, while the playwright is obviously pro-woman, he definitely does not condone everything women do and criticize everything men do. In this way, we have the opportunity to explore the ways characters are constructed and the ways they are used in the play to convey its meaning. If I were to write an essay on this, I would talk about Talthybius and Helen, mainly because they're both complex characters that the audience cannot fully love or hate. Talthybius is surprisingly sympathetic towards women, establishing himself as a complicated figure, This is epitomized through the ways in which he employs euphemistic language when announcing the dreadful news to Hecuba. He tries his best to be sensitive and mitigate the impacts of Hecuba's daughter's death to her, announcing that Polysena is to serve Achilles at his tomb, and that her fate is settled. All her troubles are over. He is sensitive and subtle instead of abruptly delivering the news. While he represents an enemy state, he shows that men can also be passionate, contradicting the phallocentric belief that men should only be governed by cool logic. Similar to Talthybius, Helen is also a complicated figure as she is both a victim of fate and a selfish character. It is possible for the audience to sympathize with her as she is merely a victim of fortune, in that she was bewitched by Aphrodite and governed by her love for Paris, the Prince of Troy. However, the ways in which she shifts the blame to Hecuba and makes her pleas preclude the audience from completely sympathizing with her, in a way, renders her as a self-absorbed and repugnant character. This notion is further fortified by the fact that she cares so little for the tens of thousands of lives taken on her behalf, as the phrase quantifies and magnifies the cataclysmic consequences of her lust for Paris. I hope this was helpful for you guys. As you can see, I've put a lot of the words that are to do with meta language on the screen for you. So what I'd recommend you is to go away from here and start reviewing your book again and trying to find, things like symbols, metaphors, similes, personification, stage directions. I'll also link you to a list of meta-language terms just to get you familiarized with them. And I wish you all the best when you're studying Women of Troy. It's definitely a really great text once you get into it. So I hope that you guys can really dive deep and find that meaning that will speak to you as well. Have a lovely week, guys. Check you next week. Bye.